I mean, he was just a giant in the industry. None of us would be here if it weren't for the paths um, that he strode before us. And I can remember in my early days of my journey towards conservatism being kind of a default liberal and borrowing my father-in-law's car to drive around Chicagoland area. One week, I for some reason didn't have a car, and it was a new car, and he had it on talk radio, and I didn't want to change his radio settings. And he was a big Limbaugh fan. He was the first black man I ever met who called himself a conservative and a Republican. And so we would talk politics a lot. And I was listening to the radio, and this guy came on the radio, and he started talking about all these concepts of the idea that Americans want to earn, Americans want to work, and most Americans don't want life handed to them, that there's joy in innovation and earning, and this is a country full of people who love to solve problems and push a path forward. And we deny, he talked about the idea of denying so many people that opportunity, like those of us who want to work and who would never take handouts just seem fine with other people wanting that for their lives, and in a way that's denigrating. And there's dignity in earning and just really pursuing happiness. He really pushed, this guy pushed that home, pursuing happiness, pursuing liberty and life. And then he said, oh, and I'm gonna take a break for an obscene profit timeout. This is Rush Limbaugh. And I nearly drove the car off the road. I was like, what? I've been listening to Rush Limbaugh, and I'm agreeing with this guy this whole time and thinking, gosh, these are refreshing ideas. This is what I believe, but why haven't I ever heard anyone say these things out loud before? And it seems so simple. And so from that day forward, I started listening to him. It was right around the time of the Donovan McNabb controversy. And I remember him saying, I'm going to play this audio because ESPN is framing this as one thing, but they never played the audio, so I'm going to play the audio. And I remember thinking, yeah, okay, good, I got this guy now, because he called this brother the N-word. I know he did, because that's what ESPN told me, and I can't wait to tell my father-in-law that I heard Rush Limbaugh with my own ears. And he said this, and he played it, and it wasn't anything like I had believed, that I was thinking. It was my first introduction to media bias. It was my first introduction to the idea that not everything that your favorite pundits are telling you is true. And it was my first introduction to the idea that there's more information out there for you if you're curious enough to find it. So Rush really is the father of conservatism when it comes to somebody like me. And I've raised a couple of Rush babies now. He was always on in the car when they were growing up. And like Doc, I didn't always agree with the things he said, but I always appreciated him. And even when I wasn't listening to him every day, if something big happened, Rush was the first program I was tuning into. I wanted to know what he was saying. I wanted to know what he was thinking. There's no way to quantify what an impact he had on our industry. And when you listen, I'll just say this to end. When you listened to Rush, you didn't hear a guy who was like how the left framed him. You didn't hear a guy who was angry and bitter and awful. That's how the left always framed him. But that, when you listen with your own ears, that wasn't who he was. I remember that was one of the biggest surprises for me, listening to him on my own, was this guy was actually full of joy. He was actually full of life. He loved this country. He loved his job. He loved his listeners, and he was very generous with the wealth that he had earned because of those listeners. And he took his burden to do good with his success, I think, very seriously. So love him or hate him, he will be missed. I loved him. I'm grateful for what he's done for this industry and all the inroads that he opened up for us. Rest in peace, Rush. Thank you so much. You will be desperately missed, but not forgotten.